Good morning, Metalheads here, net. Welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown, and today we're looking at the sophomore album from Immortal Bird entitled Thrive on Neglect. This is the second studio album from Chicago black and death metal band Immortal Bird, and they have been creating quite a buzz as of late. Some incredibly positive and uplifting praise from the likes of Metal Injection, Angry Metal Guy, Decibel Magazine, the latter of whom have also been streaming this record for about 2 weeks now ahead of the album's official release, so, they're big fans. I think that goes without saying when you do that. It certainly doesn't hurt the band that they are signed to 20 Bucks Spin as well, who as of late have been putting out some really fantastic heavy metal. I mean, just this last month, they released 2 really solid death metal albums in the form of Fetid and Superstition, both of which are considered to be some of the best death metal albums of the year in the underground metal circuit. And on top of that, they're also getting ready for the release of the highly anticipated new record from Toronto death metal crew Tomb Mold, who took us all by surprise last year with their record Manner of Infinite Forms. So yeah, pretty easy to see why a band like Immortal Bird would be getting so much buzz with all that in mind, and that's without even talking about the music, which itself features a wide range of interesting influences and ideas from across the worlds of extreme music. You've got influences from notably hardcore punk and grindcore, and I even noticed a lot of influence from Canadian death and grind music. I noticed influence from Fuck the Facts, Despised Icon, even a little wee dash of very early Gorguts and some of the dissonant chords and tones that can be found across the album and in the soundscape. But I'm going to be the bad guy. I'm going to be devil's advocate here and just go ahead and say that I think some of you have prematurely lost your shit. Because while this is an incredibly solid record, it does have some issues. And those issues, unfortunately, weigh it down quite a bit. That's not to say that it still doesn't have a lot of interesting ideas and a lot of really cool performances, because it does. It has all of those things and a lot more. But the final product is a little bit messier than that. It doesn't quite all come together in the very end. And part of the reason for that comes down to the songwriting. There are individual bits and spices that work great in single tracks, but the band has a tendency to repeat those bits and spices across all of the tracks, and suddenly songs that would individually be perceived as being very interesting and unique and engaging suddenly bleed together into one big, extreme, unpolished mess. Actually, mess is the wrong term. A slog. It just keeps going on and on and on, and there aren't really any new ideas being introduced. The band seems to have dug themselves into a weird, comfortable rut pretty early on in the album. Which is a shame, because when it starts, it genuinely kicks ass. I really love opening track Anger Breeds Contempt. I really like how anxious the riffs are. I really like how wild and frantic and unpredictable it feels. I love the hardcore energy brimming underneath these sharp, dissonant, black and death metal guitars. I love how the band transitions into these blisteringly heavy, blast beat ridden sections with disgusting, in-your-face fucking vocals. And I like most of what follows this opening track as well. Take, for instance, Vestigial Warnings, which is where I really start to notice some of the aforementioned influence from Canadian death and grind, notably Fuck the Facts and Gorguts, the latter of which is particularly obvious in this track's opening riff, which is disturbing and anxious and off-putting in all the best ways. It really does harken back to some of Obscura's more experimental material before Obscura, before they became, well, the band that we know today. And the unbridled rage that carries through this track, it's one of the most aggressive and punishing numbers on the album. But after that, man, I gotta be honest, I had trouble with this record, which is weird, because the energy level never goes down. It never gets less heavy or less brutal or less powerful. It just kind of loses some of its luster, because this is where you start to notice that these individual ideas are being repeated and rehashed across every song. Suddenly songs start to bleed together. Suddenly songs aren't so distinguishable anymore. Which started off as something that did feel pretty unique and did feel pretty powerful, now doesn't really sound like a whole lot by the time you get to the final track. And they make some other unnecessary decisions along the way that hurt the record as well. Take, for instance, the track Abolition, which is needlessly long at 7.5 minutes. There are some good moments in here, some really inspired sections of black metal savagery, but it just feels a little bloated and stretched out, not too dissimilar from some very early black metal, weirdly. And as a result, the album kind of gets by on just being energetic and super violent rather than being a seriously well-written record. Which is a shame because there are parts that are seriously well-written. Now mind you, being energetic and violent in extreme metal is not inherently a bad thing. And perhaps to some extent, Immortal Bird is aware of this, which is why they consistently put everything they've got into these songs. Vocalist Ray Amate in particular, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, apologies if I'm not, steals the fucking show. Her range, her power, it's unfucking stoppable on this record. The way she projects and, dare I say, manipulates her voice, it's really fucking incredible. I mean, her vocal performance is on par with any of the greats of extreme music, and that's amazing because this is only her second album with this band. Honestly, I could listen to this record a couple more times just for those vocals. I mean, if you're someone who really loves good extreme metal vocals, you're gonna have a goddamn field day with this album. I just wish the band was better implementing all of the ideas that lie at the core of this record. I wish they were mixing things a little differently. I wish they were writing things a little differently. I wish they were editing things a little differently. It's all these little things that they could do a little differently that kind of add up. I'm not gonna lie, it added up pretty big on the first time I listened to this record, as I kind of stopped it right after Vestigial Warnings, and I didn't really come back to it till a little bit later. I had originally planned to give this a 3 out of 5, but now that I'm sitting here really talking about how energetic and powerful and exhilarating this record can be at times, I'm willing to bump that up to a 3.5 out of 5. Sure, there are problems that can be found on the surface and even in the foundation of this record, but there's this really great piece right in the middle where everything gels really nicely, and it's fun, and it's spicy, and it's energetic, and yeah, it is something a little different for the world of black metal. Not exactly a game changer. In fact, if you're familiar with a lot of the bands I've talked about, you may already have an idea as to what this sound ultimately is, but it is just enough to distract you if you're interested in the more progressive and modern leanings of black metal. And of course, if you're just a fan of great underground metal, of course you're going to enjoy this record. I mean, just the atmosphere and the chaotic energy of this record alone is probably going to be enough for you. So there you have it, I guess. If you're looking for spicy, blood-pumping extreme metal and you're not one to nitpick about little details and little aesthetical and constructional errors, then you're going to have a goddamn blast with this. I can see it already. And even if you're in the minority like me, I'm pretty sure you can still get even a basic level of enjoyment out of this just based on the incredible performances and the energy stemming from this record. 3.5 out of 5, a really good record. Maybe not 100% worth all the praise it's getting, but at least 75%, and 75% is a passing grade. That's like a B plus pretty much, so there you have it. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately, and you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.